Hello, I'm Struppi of FullerFeedback.Systems, part of the Design Science Studio, or a member of the Design Science Studio cohort, and I would like to invite you, together with FullerFeedback.Systems, to learn something new that can grow into unforeseen scales. And that is what we call treeships. So what we would like to invite you to do together is to make a small scale tree ship like this one, which is basically like a, it's like a stool made out of branches and tied together with rope. And the shape of this stool is what we call the 8 eyes. And it's a very comfortable seat, but it also teaches one everything one needs to know to create this same thing large enough to be a structure to climb on and to hang out on, with this becoming something along the lines of a hammock. All right, so what do we need to make this? Not much, it turns out. All this is a dozen pieces of branches and rope. And to make it, we don't need much except a saw to cut the branches, a knife to round off the ends of the branches, because those, when we cut them, are sharp corners and we don't want that. And it's really just carving off the edge of that cut. And then after that, we would have a dozen of these. And, you know, for reference, for scale reference, that very stool I just showed you has about this length in terms of the branches, which is my cubit, meaning roughly the length from my elbow to my fingertips, right? So I need a dozen of those, and as I'm moving along some branches to make them, you know, one end of the branches will eventually quite certainly be rather thick, like this, while the other end might become very thin. And you might be worried that this might be too thin to carry weight, but it doesn't need to be on the top of the stool. It could be on the bottom of the stool, and then it doesn't carry any weight, and it's okay, even if it's a little thin. And also, the structure itself will be remarkably strong, much stronger than the pieces make it seem. So if you have a dozen of those, that's all you need. So I can't really tell you how long the branches in total should be, but if you have enough branches to cut a dozen of these pieces of your cubit length, that's fine. Also, if you don't have that and you still want to learn it or try it, just get, you know, a dozen twigs or something. It might not become a stool that you can sit on, but you can still make the structure to get to know it and to know how to do it, so that if you get some larger branches, you know how to turn them into a tree ship. All right, and that's almost all we need. We need to cut the branches into length. We need to smooth off the corners of the cuts, and then we need some rope. And I got this rope here currently. It isn't ideal because it's actually tarred. It's a polyester rope, which I think is quite good for these tree ships because it's rather rot resistant and very strong. And, you know, I'm a big fan of hemp, but if a hemp rope gets wet, it swells, it tightens up the knot very strongly, and then when it's dry, this is going to be hard and brittle, and then a little movement or shock is enough to soften it up, and when that happens, the knots may slide off because they come too loose. And to avoid that, I think a polyester rope is pretty good for that use. Alright, so this is a tarred one, which it turned out wasn't the best choice for the stools, because now we got some tar on our pillows. But never learn out, never know before you try. But something along these lines. And if it's strong enough to carry your weight, if you put it somewhere and make a loop in it and hang your weight on it, and it's strong enough to carry you, then it certainly is going to be strong enough for the stool. It doesn't need to be, sailing rope to tie up sails on a ship. And all that we need is, I have a spool of that, so it's quite a long piece, and I'm not going to go waste any of that because we're actually working off the spool. And I'll show you the last ingredient short of actually doing the whole thing, which is the knot that I'm using to make both the stool and the tree ship. And that knot is usually called a clove hitch, but that's actually a triple clove hitch, not just a double as usually. And the way I make sense of it, and I'm doing it usually, is I'm a right-handed person, so I take the end of the rope and I put that onto the branch that I want to tie and hold onto that end of the rope, maybe like at least the length of a hand is good to have as a reserve on that end. And then I put my thumb onto this like so, and all I do now is the following motion. I'm openly taking hold of the rope like so, right? Open with the open hand. I close my hand and I turn it over. So it's basically coming from here, going here, from here, going here. And if you're left-handed, it's the same motion, just with the other pair of hands. Not a pair of hands, you know what I mean. All right, so I'm open-handedly taking hold of this. I'm turning it over, and then I place that loop that I've just created over the end of my branch here, like so. And I can tighten it up, and I get one loop here, right? Like that. And then I do the same exact motion another time. I open my hand, I hold it, put it over, and pull tight. And now I can actually really pull it tight. And this is the clove hitch. If you don't get it from my video, never mind, you can look it up on the internet. Clove hitch. But we need a triple one, so not just 2 loops, but a third time. Open and place the loop over, and here we go. Third loop. Brilliant. That's our knot. Everything we need to create these structures. And then, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I swear, not now. But I'll show you how you keep adding, because that's essentially everything we need to know to make the whole thing in the end. And to add another branch to our knot here, I place it under the other one, under the string, that is, under the rope here, like that. And again, I'm holding on to the rope on the top here with my thumb, and I'll just do the same exact movement I did before. I'm going to open my hand and put this loop over here. Pull this tight together. Repeat a second time. Pull it tight together. And a third time. 3 times the charm. And that's it. All right? And now these two are linked up. And they are free to move, mind you, because this structure that we're making, the tree ship or the stool, is not actually a static, solid structure, because those are long story. We don't need to go into that now. But these are dynamic structures, right? So every part is in a movement, in a constant move. But as we, if that corner there is flexible and dynamic, and I have another branch that's going to sit in here, like that. Like that. You see how this branch on the bottom here is going to be able to hold the other two branches in their place. And that's the way to create stable structures. And that's all we need to do. All right, so if you think you can do this and follow along, then please feel invited to have a session with us with the FullerFeedback.Systems to learn how to make your own stool and eventually your own tree ships to climb on and to have a lot of fun with. I hope that is fun and inviting, and see you soon. Take care.